Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time we're going to go over the top 16 breakdown of the ARG Invitational 2019. If you guys haven't noticed already, I'm joined here by Danny Wynn. Danny, say what's up to the people.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So sorry if the audio is a little weird here. We're using, one microphone for two people, so we're going to try and do the best we can. We're going to try and talk a little bit higher, and hopefully you guys can hear as well. But we're going to go over the top cut breakdown. Danny did commentate at the event, did a great job commentating the event. Had a few guests on, Eric Goodwin for one, and then Pat O'Neill, Richard Zapp at the end, commentating the top 16 breakdown. So, yeah, we're going to basically go over the top cut spread, talk about it a little bit. So, starting off, we had 5 Shenron in top cut. Now, if I'm not wrong, this might be the most Shenron in a single top cut, at least in an American event. I know Shenron does a little bit better in Europe, usually. But, yeah, so we had 4 Gogeta Shenron and 1 Shenron Victory Strike. So, for me, this format was very wide open, but at the same time, there are a few unfair decks, and by that I mean like Victory Strike variants are pretty unfair in the sense that a lot of decks just literally have no answer to them. You just can never win against it because they're so consistent, because they're going to Victory Strike you. And then Shenron Gogeta is pretty similar in the sense that if they just get the 4 energy, all they have to do is play Gogeta, they have to give a triple attack and give a crit, and then never give you a single card off your life besides that. So while I do think those decks have answers, it's just kind of unfortunate that not every deck can answer them. So it's kind of interesting, but not that surprising at the same time that so much Shenron made top cut. So Danny, what do you think about it? What do you think from like commentating the matches? What do you think about Shenron being so represented in top cut?
Yeah, I think one of the big points is definitely that the whole format is a little less aggressive. Like with back then, Shenron Gogeta was topping with Storm around, which is crazy, and then Super Shenron came out, obviously.
Shout out to Danny for creating the most toxic deck in the game.
Yeah, and just that deck is gone too. So like the whole format turned out to be a little less aggressive, and for one thing, there was a lot less green Broly in this whole tournament.
Yeah, it ended up being, I think, the 4th or 5th most rep deck, but none in top cut, which again was surprising. I mean, it's been missing top cut. The past few events have been kind of hit or miss. And it's really interesting to see because it has a really bad Ginetta matchup, and there was a lot of Ginetta at this event, more Ginetta than Green Broly, and Skilless can definitely beat it, and Yellow Broly can even beat Green Broly if you know what you're doing and you have the right deck build. But that's also a very interesting point. Like, lack of aggro in the format is definitely going to allow Shenron Gogeta, Shenron Victory Strike, and other Victory Strike decks to flourish. I definitely agree.
And,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and one of the things, if you look at many of the Gogeta Shenron lists, they all main deck. Several of them actually main decked Bardock Fully Unleashed, and other ways to remove the Broly. And technically, Broly is the most early game aggressive deck right now.
Yeah, turn 2, you deal at least 4 to 6 damage.
Yeah, like probably the most aggressive deck early. So it being knocked out, teched against by every single deck, you respect it 100% because it's so powerful, and that might have been a big factor. Everyone teching cards.
Everyone definitely respects it for sure. Yeah, that main deck Bardock is crazy because you never thought you'd see overall main deck in like a Wish deck, which is insane. The other thing too is that I saw so many Shenron decks main decking obviously Crisis Crusher, that's pretty staple in Shenron, but also striving to be the best on Goku for like that Krillin aggro from Skilless. So they really definitely were well prepared for the aggro format, or what they expected to be aggro, I guess. And then we have 3 Yellow Dende, another thing that surprised me too. Now, I've been on record saying this deck is kind of like unimpressive, but after the past few weeks, my tune on that is pretty much totally changed. Like, the deck is actually really impressive to me now, especially playing against it in top cut. Like, I get to see the power of it. You know, it can outgrind some of the strongest decks. It has inherent answers to Victory Strike, which is, like we talked about, one of those quote-unquote unfair decks where you just win outright sometimes. And you also have answers to Shenron Gogeta, and you put on a ton of pressure. You know, you can have 3, 4, 5 double striking Friezas by turn 3, right, or turn 4. So the deck's really powerful, really consistent. And seeing 3 in top, I think this deck actually is on the come up because, like Matt Coombs has said in the past, it's a deck that really rewards a skillful player. I really like the deck. So Danny, what do you think about seeing it in top cut?
Yeah, there's a ton of stream games with Yellow Dende, Danny Hype, Daehan, and Connor, all pretty strong players that have performed before at Pilot. It's very difficult to play. There's no question. You have to know every matchup, know what to play off the Clan of Terrors. And one of the big things that they all teched was the new Fu, Dark Banisher.
Yeah, that was our top end, yeah.
Yeah, it's quicker than Demigra, and the format, when everyone's going for turn 4 or turn 5 kills, Fu going on 4 made a big deal. When you have several freezes out, it's devastating.
Yeah, Banisher Fu, the new Dark Banisher Fu. I hate that it's called Banisher Fu because it makes me confused with the other Banisher Fu.
Yeah.
But Dark Banisher Fu, the 8-drop, is so insane when you have an established board. By itself, it can be somewhat mediocre, but when you have an established board, like I said, of like 4 or 5 double strike freezes, you should pretty much win every single game you're able to resolve that. Like, it's absolutely nuts. Your opponent's going to be pitching tons and tons of cards. If you watch my stream game, I almost got pressured out of the game from that type of board. 3 double strike freezes on board and a Fu the Dark Banisher. Like, it was absolutely bananas.
And it's already a hand control deck, so by the time you drop the Fu, your hand should already be low from all the hand, like 1-star balls and the Clan of Terrors dropping your hand down. So Fu is devastating.
Yeah, that Fu is a huge power boost to that. Next up, pretty surprising at the lack of this in Top Cut, but only 2 yellow Broly. However, one did manage to win the event. So they were both Victory Strike variants of yellow Broly. I think this was going into the tournament. I think it was the scariest deck of the format. I think it was something that people were really trying to tech hard against. Just to note too, there was also 1 Victory Strike Shenron. So technically 3 Victory Strike decks in the entire Top Cut, 2 of which were Broly. 4? What was the...
Oh, Purunga.
Purunga as well. That's right. That's absolutely right. So 4 Victory Strike decks in general. Again, like, one of the boss monsters I think was the scariest in the entire tournament. And obviously we just had Mutaito come out, aka the Potato, come out, and that was one of the most sought after cards from the WMAT Power Booster. And people were just trying to get their hands on it to counter Victory Strike, to counter Shenron, Gogeta, all these big boss monster decks. But in the end, they ended up taking the day. So personally, from playing in the event and playing in the format, even though that deck can outright win certain games, if you're playing a well-equipped deck, if you know what you're doing, if you're playing, a strong deck, maybe rogue decks can't handle it, but if you know what you're doing in the format, it feels like even Victory Strike isn't quite out of reach. It just comes down to, can you out-combo the Victory Strike a lot of times. So I don't necessarily think it's a tier 0 format. I don't think it's a super skewed format. I do think Victory Strike is incredibly strong, but I do think it's beatable. So I don't necessarily know if Path needs to go, if Victory Strike needs to go. I think the format is relatively okay, at least from where we came from Super Shenron. But Danny, what are your thoughts on that? Like, Victory Strike winning, but I don't necessarily think it's unbalanced. What do you think?
Yeah, I think every single deck was teching towards it, of course, but you got to remember the Broly was also teching against Mutaito itself. That's definitely a big point, and all 4 of those decks draw a lot. Both the Brolys played Roshi Shen, so they had huge advantage, and some of them could even win without Victory Strike, but Victory Strike's insane sometimes.
Yeah, the ability of Broly. I used to think that U7 Frieza was a better Victory Strike leader just because like I said, you never had to give your opponent advantage to get your advantage and then Victory Strike them, right? So you could leave someone at 8 life, Victory Strike them if you wanted to. Shenron Victory Strike can do the same thing and just passively gain advantage. But the thing with Broly is you get alternate win conditions. You can go into the leader on 2 Champas, let's just say. Like that's a popular win condition against like Green Broly. Going into the leader on a double strike, comboing it up pretty high. Using the leader effect, restanding your leader, going in on a second Champa. That's a way to win the Green Broly matchup that something like U7 Victory Strike doesn't really have. So after this weekend and after talking about it with my teammates, I definitely think that Yellow Broly is the best overall Victory Strike leader because it does have alternate win conditions. And that part makes it a little over the top. Maybe something like Victory Strike errata to U7 leader only. Maybe it would make it a little bit more fair. Because I think the crazy thing is that height taps you out and then you get Victory Strike. Mafuba used to be an answer to Victory Strike. Used to be able to time magic it more consistently. Sorry, not time magic. Used to be able to afterimage it more consistently. And the fact that you get tapped out is kind of annoying. But I mean, that's a debate maybe for another video. So we'll keep going on with the top cut. 1 Purunga Victory Strike. Pretty much just talked all about Victory Strike. Purunga was a very interesting build because you get access to that leader ultimate where you could bring back the Bulma after you play Height of Mastery. You get to untap 2 energy, so you have the perfect amount for a bad ring and the ability to evolve into Victory Strike. So that's a little bit self-explanatory because we talk about it a lot. Next up, though, really interesting. I know Danny really, really likes this deck. We had 1 Toa in top cut. 1 Toa, the Chaos Bringer. And this deck was super interesting. I mean, it made the Vegeta Champion Pack spike up to $60 a copy. So maybe hold off on that if you guys want to pick that deck up anytime soon. But with that being said, the deck is really cool. One of the reasons being it has an inherent answer to Path to Greatness. Your leader is basically a Godstrike Beerus. So you remove the barrier, then you play either a Toa to steal the path, or you can play a Mass Hand to remove it, whatever the case may be. That deck was super cool, super interesting. Danny, you saw the deck firsthand a ton. I know you really like the deck. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we were talking smack about it. I think a lot of the community, I definitely, not being able to draw on an Awakened side, that sounds so bad, but Time Regulator is the best card in the deck. No questions asked. Toa would not exist without Vegeta. Like, that card's just amazing. And yeah, like you said, God Strike on a stick is insane. Like, but I do think one thing that factored into a lot of the success is a lot of players just not knowing what Toa does, like not really realizing that it's literally a god strike on a stick, like easily. Gogeta Shenron got completely destroyed on stream because he just did not read the leader at all, and he got blown out. But he actually was able to come back game 2 because he realized what it does. You just got to play around it. But I still think Toa has a chance. It might not be tier 1 yet. Maybe some good correct tech, it'll make it stronger, but gotta keep in mind you can play around Toa.
Yeah, Toki City is going to be an insane card for the deck, but that's maybe another topic for another video. The crazy thing is, being a God Strike on your Awakened side, like you just said, it wrecked Shenron Gogeta because they didn't know what they were doing against the leader. It makes the leader so inherently defensive. Even though you won't always have a huge hand, you know, you can remove Triple Strike at a whim, remove Triple Attack at a whim. It's super powerful.
Critical barrier, anything you want. Like, it's amazing. Like you said, against Path, I know he was talking to me, he's stealing Path of Greatnesses all the time. Easily, like you didn't have to worry about it. Everything is removable with that deck.
Yeah, having an inherent answer to Victory Strike already gives you a leg up in the format. If that's one of the scariest decks, that deck is super cool. Definitely look out for it in the future. I think as Black gets more support, like I said, Toki City, that deck is going to continue to be absolutely insane. And Surprise Factor, we see time and time again, is a huge advantage in Dragon Ball. So keep that in mind. If you have some spicy deck that's been working well for you, consider taking it to a regional, especially in this format. It's pretty wide open. It's pretty diverse. We had what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different leaders in this top cut, I believe. And that's just insanely diverse. Even though there are some unfair decks, there's still so much room to wiggle in this format. It's really, really cool. Next up, we had the one Skilless player in top cut. Hi guys, that was me. I made top cut with Skilless, which was pretty sick. I was 1 out of 47 Skilless players to make this top cut, which not to make it a humble brag, I'm not even gonna brag at all. Basically what it means is I think that Skilless is one of the more underpowered decks in the format. I will admit that, even though I love the deck to death. I think it is really good, but I think it's the best fair deck in the sense that it doesn't do anything crazy broken. It doesn't have Victory Strike. It doesn't have Triple Attack, Triple Strike, critical. It doesn't remove keyword skills. It doesn't do anything absolutely insane. It doesn't mill the opponent out, right? It doesn't have these alternate win conditions. I think it's just the best fair deck. Like I know a lot of people were on like Chain Zeno variants to interrupt Path of Greatness, to interrupt Shenron Gogeta. That is another quote-unquote fair deck because Chain Zeno always brings everything back to 50-50, I guess you can say. But I think Skilless, just because it gets more advantage, it puts a board out more easily. I think Skilless does have a leg up over something like Hurdigar and Chain Zeno in terms of the fair decks, right? So I'm not surprised that more Skilless wasn't in this top cut because there are a lot of decks that do a lot of powerful things. But Danny, what do you think about the representation of Skilless compared to the overall room being the most highly rep deck versus how much of it was in top cut?
Yeah, so you can definitely tell that like the normal Skilless playstyle is to play more mid-rangey and play Android 8s, slowly equate like value, but the main difference, you got yourself that your deck was built way different than most of the Skilless in the room. Plus, of course, you practice it a ton and know all your matchups. That's definitely one thing. It might be more the player than the deck. That's the only time I'm gonna compliment him. You were playing aggressive, and that's like really aggressive. You're killing several people turn 3.
Yeah.
There's like we were talking earlier. Like there's not that many aggro decks in the format, but you made your deck really aggressive by adding Bean and Krillin together. Yeah, so that's the main difference that made you so successful. And compared to the other Skilless, not so successful, especially since several decks, it's almost like a gateway into the format. If you can't be Skilless, that deck's not playable.
Right.
Victory Strike, all these other decks, they play test against Skilless first, and then you can go into the format.
Yeah, because it's the most fair deck, it's kind of like the lowest bar, maybe. If you can't beat Skilless, you're definitely not beating Victory Strike. You're definitely not beating Shenron Gogeta. And the thing about the format, too, is like Danny said, my deck was killing a lot of people on turn 3. Shenron Gogeta and Victory Strike variants, their win condition, their win turn is turn 4. So either you need to play something that's equally as powerful on turn 4 and kind of hope you win the dice roll. Maybe you have answers to Victory Strike. Maybe you have answers to Shenron Gogeta. Or you got to be playing something so aggressive you're winning on turn 3. You got to get what's called getting under the format, right? So you have to get underneath those decks, win on turn 3. That's kind of the space we're in now. It's hard to play slower decks like Freezer Prison, maybe like Mono Blue Hurdigar. It's hard to play decks like that because they are slower. You're going to have a rough time against the what I call turn 4 OTK decks. So With that being said, we have a few more decks in Top Cut. We had
One point I wanted to add though,
go for it.
like the base skillless builds, everyone is playing Demigod. Like that's probably the wrong mindset now. You're not skillless is not allowed to go to turn 5. You know, you're gonna die. You got to be killing them before interrupting their strategy or doing a huge bomb. Like
yeah, one thing I will say though is that for example, like Russell Stelzer and a couple of people were main decking objection skillless, which is something kind of new. Because what it was before is Ginetta was the deck that was dominating the format, so turn 5 and skillless was okay. It was okay because you can get to go to G7 securely and wreck them, and you were beating the best deck in the format. Now Ginetta has been kind of phased out, and with that being said, yes, turn 5 is definitely way too slow. But if you're playing objection and skillless, you can kind of get away with it, but I think skillless will benefit from a more aggressive approach going forward for sure. Next up in Top Cut, we had one Lord Slug. So this was this is something that kind of hit or misses, I guess. This has been in Top Cut before. It's something that we're used to seeing to an extent, but every time it's still a little bit surprising. And actually, what I did notice at this event was a lot more people than normal side decking Mercenary Tau, which probably led to this guy's lack of success in Top Cut. But with that being said, it's really cool to see a rogue deck like Slug. I definitely consider it more rogue than anything else. It's really cool to see this deck make Top Cut, and it just adds to the diversity pool. The deck is super crazy, especially when it's on play, just ripping 3 on turn 3, and then ripping another 3 on turn 4. A lot of decks really have a hard time coming back from that. So, Danny, did you ever catch this deck play?
Yeah, we actually had it on stream around round 3, I think. Maybe even 2. Yeah, might have been 2 times, actually, in Swiss. And I don't think the deck's that, like, you would even call it that rogue. It's like maybe 1.5 too. It's really strong. Like, it definitely has some weak matchups. If the deck's drawing too much, it has no chance. But if it's just drawing like a normal amount of cards, it's gonna lose, and it could be really strong. Like one point I really want to make, like a lot of Broly Height of Masteries that weren't playing Roshi Shen definitely lost. They lost to Lord Slug, like straight up. Their hands were not big enough. But if you play Roshi Shen, if they start swinging at the Shens, they're not swinging at your lead. And everyone knows that Broly loves cutting his life to draw more cards. And Roshi Shen just keeps the hand up. So that's one big point to remember. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that as we get more cards in set 7, like we saw that Green is getting a Whis and Borgos, basically. That's going to improve the power of Slug in general. It's also a Namekian, which helps too. So I think that deck is actually going to keep getting stronger as time goes on. Bandai seems to like Slug a lot, so that's really cool. The last deck in this Top Cut, believe it or not, was one single Ginetta player. Did make it a Top Cut. It was the 3rd or 4th most rep deck in the Top Cut, which was pretty interesting. Not surprising it made Top Cut at 1 slot, but it is kind of interesting how this deck seems to be getting more and more phased out as the weeks go by. Just like 3 weeks, a month ago, Ginetta was the scariest deck in the format, because even Victory Strike was scared of it, because you got your Victory Strike milled, you had a really rough time in Game 1. Game 2, getting your answers milled out was a real problem, but ever since Skilless started main decking Gogeta 7, Ginetta has pretty much gotten phased out. But now that we have Sherman Gogeta and Broly Victory Strike taking over, maybe those decks will continue to do well for a few more weeks. Then maybe Ginetta will be playing more of the appropriate techs to beat it, and then maybe we'll see this like revolving door format. But Danny, what do you think? Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that Ginetta is pretty much just done this format?
No, I think Ginetta will always top. There's arguments on the group, the main group all the time, discussion group. Everyone's complaining about Ginetta or making memes about it. If you ever ask any good player, Ginetta will top. I think it will always top, but it will probably never win again from the last couple times, because everyone knows if you play correctly and sequence correctly against Ginetta, you can beat it. It's like no matter what deck you have for the most part, and most decks do tech. If it's like, if you know it's a bad matchup, you'll tech for it, like Dangerous Journey Bulma. So like a lot of bad, like wrong sequencing, you could lose against Ginetta. But if you play correctly and you know what you have a game plan, you'll beat it. That's why you don't see it get past like that far in Top Cut.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, Victory Strike deck started playing Trunks Overseeing Time at 2 or 3 in the side deck. Sherman Gogeta has Dangerous Journey Bulma. Skilless players stopped awakening against them and playing Gogeta 7. The format definitely shifted to beat Ginetta, but what's kind of interesting is maybe the format gets more aggressive to beat Victory Striking and beat Sherman Gogeta. Maybe Ginetta benefits from that. Maybe not. Maybe they won't be able to handle the aggro. Maybe it'll be hand control that takes over. It's a really interesting dynamic. But yeah, my teammates all told me Ginetta is not the play to win this tournament. And I agree with them. I also don't like to play the deck myself. But with that being said, I do agree with them. It is maybe you can say it's an unfair deck because it has that alternate win condition of mill, and like I said, it just pushes slower decks out of the format, which is kind of annoying. But on the spectrum of unfair things, it's very, very beatable.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, you can always win. You're never searching for a win condition as your number. That's why it always top.
Yeah.
Because I can always win. It's not like any other deck you're like trying to drop bombs or do stuff. You're gonna always eventually win. That's why it always top.
Yeah, absolutely. So we pretty much covered this entire top cut spread. In my opinion, overall, I like the diversity. I know a lot of people do like 3 meta deck formats or even tier 0 formats, 1 deck formats, because it's like maybe a little bit more skillful in the mirror match, but and maybe a little bit less planning you have to do. But personally, I like diverse formats like this. I like sitting down every round and playing something different. For me, it just keeps things interesting, keeps me on my toes, and it also allows surprise factor decks to do really well, like Toa, for example. People think that, oh, I can't plan for all these decks, but then if you play something, out there, something outside the box, people are going to be having a hard time prepping for you. So I personally like diverse formats. So overall, I'm pretty happy about the format. It's not perfect by any means. Victory Strike is annoying. Shenron Gogeta is annoying, but like I said, not unbeatable. You can play something aggressive to get under it, or you can play something equally as powerful on turn 4 to try and combat it. So Danny, let's end off with your opinions on the format.
Yeah, so a lot of top players, they definitely, like some of my teammates, they just say they straight up hate it. Like, technically from a competitive standpoint, knowing what you're gonna face is better. Like, you don't want a player like Jordan Markle sitting down and losing to something rogue. He planned, and like he's getting surprised. He doesn't like that. Like, if you're trying to be competitive, trying to be consistent, you want a couple decks, but at the same time, it might come down to your deck choice. You gotta make sure that your deck choice is really strong overall. Like, Broly Height of Mastery, very strong overall. That's why you can see it win at the end.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely want to be covering as many matches as possible, and even against Rogue, like, just have general game plans. Like, even if you see a Rogue hand control deck, have your Taos on the side, have your game plan for it. Maybe it won't be Slug, maybe it won't be Dende Frieza, but have your general game plan for whatever you think you might face. I think the format will continue to be pretty wide open for at least a few more weeks, unless like Victory Strike really starts taking over, or like Shenron Gogeta starts really taking over. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Danny, thank you so much for being with me. Guys, stay tuned for tomorrow. My 3rd place deck profile for Skilless is going to be up on the channel tomorrow, so check that out. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Joey. This is Danny, and we'll see you guys next time.
Super Shenron. All right, now that you guys finished watching that video, they should have never banned fucking Child's Wish. They shouldn't. Super Shenron was the best deck in the game. Super Shenron was the best!